Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So, we do have Autumn of Agony Gauntlet finally being released with two new fights of Tigra and Northstar. And Tigra is arguably the harder one here, unless you have kind of a perfect counter. She can definitely be quite intimidating. And in this is effectively going to be a summary of my run, as well as me giving some of the more potent and more popular options that I have here people use so far. So let's say this is going to be a bit of a makeshift guide. Additionally, I did write down all the objectives that you need to cover. I personally, this time around, chose to skip the metal one. And then, well, because it annoyed me, I did it later on. So I did the third run. But you can do this in 2 runs, but it is very tricky. So most people do end up leaving one objective aside, and most of the time it is metal one that's kind of hardest to accommodate. Overall MVPs that can do multiple fights on either side are Serpent, Onslaught, Silk, Omega Sentinel, and Bullseye, in my opinion, quite definitely. So let's talk a bit more about the Tiger fight. If you bring in Silk or Quicksilver, you basically have a very, very basic Tiger fight. There's absolutely nothing to worry about aside from her going unblockable now and then. Now, Deathless She-Hulk is quite good for it as well, because Deathless She-Hulk can switch off the unblockable, and then as long as you don't dex, you're gonna be pretty much fine. Piggy, in between Inequity and Taunt and everything else, can finish that fight quite quickly and well. If you do have some time to spare, there is a Lady Deathstrike cheese available, where you effectively just spam level once. So first you enter your ferocity with Lady Deathstrike, so your special attacks are unblockable. You do that by dropping 3 level 2s, but you get power extremely quickly because Raptures, well, Tiger is immune to Raptures. And then from that point forward, you just spam level 1 without baiting out any special attacks from Tigra. It takes forever because you have no Rapture damage, but it is, foolproof way how to solo that fight as well with Lady Deathstrike. And then Sinister also, because of his ability to block unblockable special attacks, it's quite decently good for that fight, I'd say. Prowler can be done with most champions. Ideally, you do want either a miss counter or somebody that gets some extra power gain in order to be able to get your level 1 and level 2, in timely manner. So you can switch off the indestructible charges. But other than that, he's not that bad. Heimdall can literally be done by any champion. Obviously, there are better champs than others. Somebody like Dragon Man or Silk make that fight very trivial, because you just switch off the most annoying node and you deal with the unstoppable your way. Then you can also use any champion and just use level 3s. Then you don't have to worry about ever knocking Heimdall down outside of your own level 3s. And if you are using any other champions and you do need access to other special attacks and you want to speed it up and you feel quite skilled, then best to punish Heimdall's heavy attack after the second hit. Additionally, Northstar. Northstar is a champion that you, again, ideally just want to be able to bypass miss. Because then you can attack much more freely. You effectively cannot use your special attacks aside from when you are punishing his special or dashing in. And whenever he finishes his specials, he effectively goes untouchable for like 2 seconds. So it means punishing his special attack is also going to be tricky unless you have miss counter. So in my experience, Omega Sentinel was absolutely phenomenal in this fight. Onslaught is great as well. Serpent, and from what I have heard, Shuri works quite decently well. But yeah, Serpent and Omega Sentinel are the ones that carried me in these fights. More than any other. And then Jabari Panther, basically you just need to be very careful with debuffs and whenever she gets to shrug them off. So ideally, you want to be able to be aggressive as well as finish your combos with light attacks in order to reset that cleanse charge that she is about to get. And then again, a ton of champions can kind of do that fight. I ended up doing it with the Meg Sentinel. Basically just got in the tracking debuff on Jabari, and from that point forward made it a point to never let go of it, so I don't have to worry about falter there. And then applied a handful of incinerates and try to keep them poised for as long as possible. I think Ironheart can actually be very good for that fight too. Then we have Cassie Lang, and push her at level 2. Do not trigger Crush, ideally, and keep a track of Evade and Miss. Onslaught, Omega Sentinel, Atuma, actually did quite well. I have heard Crossbones does great. Serpent, I hear, can pretty much solo the entire right side by himself. Bullseyes, and definite option too. And then again we have Heimdall and Northstar yet again. So, as I mentioned before, the tags and the tactics are quite finicky to match, and that is also absolutely a commentary this time around on the Autumn of Agony Gauntlet. I think it is quite a bit harder than previous ones. It's definitely all soloable, but it kind of got to me. I got tilted and I used like a bunch of revives. But once I did some fights off screen, you know, it kind of became easier. And yeah, I just needed to kind of calm myself down. I, by no means, have the ability to test out everything, and this quest allows you a ton of decision making in the terms of how you're going to get your objectives done, which you're going to pair. Obviously, you have to go Saga and non-Saga, and then these two classes, so you basically have to run it twice. And one team that I have heard does 4 objectives and does them quite well is Spiral, Deathless She-Hulk, and Thanos. Going on the left side, if you're capable of doing that, great for you. But in general, yeah, there's going to be quite a lot of variance, and it is, you know, this time around it's quite tricky to fit in all the objectives in 2 runs. It is doable, absolutely, but if you have not missed any objective thus far, I just want to remind that it is perfectly a-okay to leave one of these out. You do have that extra point from the Deathless objective before, so you kind of just want to get to the final milestone to get all the rewards. And again, by far the biggest MVPs, Serpent can do the entire right side and most of the left side, with the exception of Tigra. So Serpent is absolute beast for it. Similar to Onslaught, Onslaught can do a ton of fights everywhere, largely because of his miscounter, the way he delivers damage. Then we have Silk, phenomenal for, you know, a bunch of fights too, including Heimdall, including Tigra. You can use her against Prowler relatively well. I started off well until I screwed up badly. I think she should be quite decent against Northstar, potentially, but, you know, maybe. Omega Sentinel was a surprise MVP, largely because of her tracking debuff. So definitely, if Omega Sentinel can do this great, I do believe Ironheart should be capable of doing very well too. And it's similar to Bullseye. If you kind of need the name of the game here, for the most part, we have Jabari Panther, that involves, you know, falter and miss. We have Cassie Lang, that involves missing attacks. We have Northstar, that involves missing attacks. We have Prowler, that involves missing attacks, and so we can see that the clear focus here are on the champions that are capable of ideally bypassing miss in order to simplify the fight. You can absolutely do it without them, but by far and away, the most important ability in this Autumn of Agony is your ability to bypass miss. I did forget to mention Hercules. Hercules can do a bunch of these fights as well. For Prowler, for Northstar, I believe he would be just fine for Heimdall as well. So yeah, Hercules can probably do quite a bit, and in general you would want to be looking at miss counters. So again, that will be just about it here. I do, however, want you guys to drop in the comment section who you ended up using, what are your MVPs, because again, I'm just a single person. I can't put all of them in the sheet, you know, because it's impossible for me to test everything. I will make the sheet available for you, should you choose to use it, and I either will make a follow-up video or just keep updating the sheet on the down low based on your comments. So we do have more options suggested here. So I absolutely want to hear which teams you used, how did it go, what you would change, which objectives you did with those teams, so on and so forth. Hopefully this little video is helpful, and if it is, hit all the good buttons. I'll catch you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have already